Hey y'all, good morning. It's Ned over at My Philippine Dreams, N to the E to the D over at MPD, 210.11 pounds of twisted steel and sex appeal. Got two things for you today. First up, we're going to be talking about purchasing motorcycles, used versus new, and I'm also going to be able to relate a recent misadventure we had with our own paperwork on one of our motorcycles. One of the most common questions we get is in regards to motorcycles. A lot of times guys are buying new motorcycles. When you're buying a new motorcycle or a new scooter, it's a relatively painless process. The dealer will usually take care of the first year's insurance and the first year's registration. When you get the bike, all you're basically going to have is a deed of sale though. So you keep a copy of the deed of sale under your seat, you have your driver's license on you, you can scoot around for a while until that original certificate of registration and original receipt, the official receipt, comes in. Now, when you're purchasing, and then you got to wait for your plates, which can take a while, then you can wait for your stickers, which can take years. Anyways, moving on. When you're purchasing used, you're going to save a lot of money. For example, we bought the Click brand new, it was 85,000 pesos. And as soon as we drove off the lot, it lost about 15,000 pesos in value. So when you're buying used, you can get a lot better deal. The only problem is you're not sure how the motorcycle or scooter was maintained. Sometimes if you're purchasing local, they haven't changed the oil, they haven't changed the transmission fluid. So if you know about motorcycles or scooters and small engines and that, you can usually check it over. Sometimes you'll have to fix the brakes, repair the brakes, stuff like that. But overall, if you're buying a used Yamaha, a used Honda, a used Suzuki, you're going to be okay. Now, if you're going to buy used, you're going to have to make sure that all the paperwork is correct. I recommend hiring the services of somebody local here in Dumaguete. We have a gentleman named John Paul, who whenever I'm doing a purchase, I usually have him at least review the documents and make sure everything is in order. The most important document is what they call the certificate of registration. That's that yellow piece of paper. There's two pieces of paper here. One's blue and one's yellow. You need both of these. These are really important. The certificate of registration is the first time the motorcycle was registered. So you definitely need that. Now, say you purchased if you're buying from a buyer who purchased it in 2012, the certificate of registration can say 2012 on it, that's fine. But when it comes to the official receipt for renewing the registration, you got to make sure that it is up to date. It's good for a year. The date on this one is February 5th, 2015. So this one is actually expired, but this is actually one of our old ones. I'm just using this as an example. So you need these two pieces of paper. These are extremely important. The CR doesn't have to be up to date, but the OR does. So you got to make sure that that happens. Also, you need a deed of sale. Deed of sale, it's got to be notarized. It's got to have all the information. This is basically what it looks like. I'm actually putting together a couple deeds of sale because we're selling two. We're selling our Rouser and I'm transferring the Rusi over to Michelle's name because it was originally in my name. So you got to have these deeds of sale and you have to have them notarized. They love notarizing things in the Philippines, and usually the notary will have an ID because that's another thing they like in the Philippines is ID cards for some reason. So the deed of sale, the OR and the CR, and you also need photocopies of at least two forms of ID of the original owner. So the first person who purchased the motorcycle, you need photocopies, at least two forms of identification, a driver's license, IDs like that, voter registration cards, and also 3 signatures. Sometimes they'll let you go if you don't have all the signatures, but for some reason they want 3 signatures on the same paper that the IDs are on. And every time you sell the bike or every time there's a new owner, you need photocopies of all those IDs. So if you're purchasing a bike that's had 3 previous owners, you need copies of all the original deeds of sale and all the 2 forms of identification for all those 3 individuals. And you need to make sure you get the OR and the CR and all that up to date. So it can be a bit of a headache, but you can save a lot of money. I mean, some friends of ours just purchased a Yamaha Mio for about 30,000 pesos. Brand new, they go for like 68, 70,000 pesos. And it seems well maintained, and it's a Yamaha, so they're pretty reliable. So that's a good deal. Again, you can save some money purchasing used. I purchased the Click new because, again, I was worried about the maintenance. I'm buying a used unit from somebody locally here, and I just wanted to make sure everything was copacetic. It's also like a long-term investment. Hopefully I'll have it for many years and be able to get my money's worth out of it. I'm going to be doing a review on the Click as soon as I hit 500 kilometers. So far, so good. It took a little getting used to the raised seat height and all that, but the power on it compared to the Rusi, the power on it compared to a Beat or a Mio is pretty impressive. It can really get up and go when it has to. And I haven't really winded it out because it's still in its 1,000 kilometer break-in process. Now for the Misadventure. There's always a misadventure here at our humble residence at Pink House in Negros Oriental, Dumaguete City, the city of gentle people. I had announced on our channel that I was looking to sell the Rouser because I don't use it. It's impractical for my driving, experiences and my driving type, just basically going in and out of the city. So I announced that I was selling it, and one of our subscribers was very interested. We met up the other night. He looked it over and said, okay, it's a done deal. Let's do this. So he's not going to actually be paying for it until in September. So he gave me a small deposit, and everything seemed copacetic until I got home and I started looking for the paperwork, for the OR, for the CR, for the original deed of sale, for the photocopies of the first owner's identification and all that stuff, and I couldn't find it. All I had was an old, outdated CR and OR photocopy that I kept under the seat. And that's another thing, real quick. With these ORs and CRs, you don't want to be carrying these around. You can make photocopies of these, put them under your seat, and show those if you get pulled over, hit up in a checkpoint. Because if you lose these, they're a real pain in the ass to replace. So these are what you can take photocopies of. You have to have your original Philippines driver's license on you. You can't use a photocopy of that, as I found out after I got my bike impounded one night. But you can use the copies of this. So I couldn't find that stuff. I started freaking out. I started going through my files and all that. Still couldn't find it. And the next day, yesterday, I actually devoted about half the day, OR and CRs and deed of sales are blowing away. I devoted half the day yesterday, about 4.5 hours, tearing the house apart looking for the paperwork on the Rouser. I couldn't find it. I moved furniture, I went through every single file, folder, all of the boxes that we have, all the bags that we have, every single piece of paperwork that I have and Michelle has, and it's actually quite a bit. And it took 4.5 hours, and finally I just gave up. I'm like, I can't find this stuff. And I started the process of what we're gonna have to do to replace the CR and OR. And the only place I didn't check, I had opened up Michelle's clothes closet. And I looked in the clothes closet, and all I saw was clothes. And she's got a lot of clothes. So I'm like, you know what? And I was covered in sweat at this point. This was like the last place in the house that I didn't look. And I'm like, this is just clothes, so it can't be in here. Come to find out, the next morning, this morning, Michelle comes out, and she's got a stack of paperwork. And sure enough, all the paperwork for the Rouser 200 NS were there. The OR, the CR, the deed of sale, the photocopies of the guy's IDs, everything I needed. And if I hadn't found it, he's actually OFW in San Diego right now, so getting copies of his IDs and everything to get the CR and the OR would have been next to impossible. So all ended well. It was kind of frustrating looking for all this yesterday. I forget things, and I guess Michelle forgets things, and we just had forgotten. I guess when Mari Carr, her sister, came here in April while I was gone, she had moved it and stashed it, some important paperwork in her clothes closet and had forgotten about it. But again, everything ended well. We have the paperwork. I got to actually text the guy, the subscriber, now and tell him that we have the paperwork. So ORs, CRs, deed of sales, copies of photocopies, notarizations, all that stuff's important if you're buying a used motorcycle. If you're buying new, they're basically going to take care of all of it. That should cover about everything there is to do with paperwork on motorcycles in the Philippines, used and new bikes in the Philippines, and our latest misadventure when it comes to paperwork in the Philippines. This is Ned over at My Philippine Dreams. We'll see you next time. Bye. What the hell was I talking about? Damn, my train just went off the tracks. If you're buying a used local unit like a Racal and Rusi, Emperador, Caveat, Emptor. If you're buying a local unit like a Racal or a Rusi, Caveat, Emptor, just be really careful, because sometimes you're going to have problems with those. And for those who have Rusian recall, I'm not trying to, I'm just relating our experiences with them.